to quickly start this off, right? And thanks a lot, guys, for taking time out for this. Also, big shout out to the Chase guys for making this happen for you. I think this is an incredible platform for all of you guys to get a first-hand perspective of what's happening outside. Which, let me tell you, in the world that I live in, is very, very expensive affair. If you want to understand just about how the MBA works, or if you just want to get reflections about a person who's finished it, let me tell you, you got to really shell out some real money to get that. So I think you guys should be really happy about what the startup is trying to do. So let's kick in, right? Just before I start, the pictures that I have in this have absolutely nothing to do with the content that I'm going to speak about, and that is purely because these pictures are what I put in front of me to remind myself of where I can go once this bloody lockdown is over, which it doesn't seem to be like anytime soon. But it doesn't hurt to just have these pictures around, right? So you'll see quite a few of them in the deck. Please don't worry, nothing to do with the content. Just to keep it a little light, right? So what I'm going to talk about is pursuing your MBA abroad, and all of the things that you would want to know under that umbrella. And let me just quickly give you a heads up. It doesn't necessarily, your questions or your thoughts or your comments don't necessarily have to revolve around that topic. I encourage you to go beyond and ask me absolutely anything that you have around this particular topic, or maybe some other topic that you feel from my background I can help you with, right? So let's go in. So to quickly introduce myself, right? I'm from Mumbai. I'm born and brought up there. I did my engineering from SP in Mumbai. I graduated in 2012, which now seems like ages ago. I worked in the analytics industry for about 6 years. So I was working for this company called Sigma. I don't know how many of you guys have heard about it, but I was there for all of the 6 years of my beginning phase of the career. I worked out of Bangalore for a couple of years. I was in London for a year and a half. I was in Amsterdam for about 6 months. So very, very diverse experience. It was around this time I figured out I wanted to do an MBA. So after 6 years of working, you sort of, realize, oh, wait, you had a dream about 4 or 5 years back, which was to do an MBA, and you still haven't done it. So it was somewhere around there at that particular time that my bulb lit up, and I decided to go for it. I applied to a few schools, got about 2 to 3 offers, out of which one was from IE in Madrid, in Spain. I know how many of you guys have heard about it. This used to be a very well-ranked university, but recently, lately, there have been some challenges with their rankings. But yeah, definitely one of the really good universities out there. And then once I graduated in 2019, I had a couple of offers to work in Europe. One of them was Booking.com. I don't know how many I'm pretty sure you guys must have heard about Booking.com. I'm pretty sure you guys must have used this as well. So it's out of Amsterdam, and I've been here for about 7 months now. Yeah, pretty long time. And this is where I expect to be, by the way, next. Sorry, I mean, completely out of context, but again, trying to get my mind out of this quarantine mode. So it's been an amazing journey overall. I think one of my biggest learning periods. Hey, I keep seeing a ping on the chat. Am I supposed to keep looking at it, or should I just?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I only pinged. I'm saying your voice is fluctuating high and low. If you have an earphone, you can use that. Or
all right, let me try this. Give me a second.
Yeah.
All right, is it better now?
Yes, it's better now.
All right, perfect. Cool. Do you want to test again? Is it better?
Yes, it's constant. It's better.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. And was I audible before, or should I repeat quickly? I mean, I don't mind doing it.
You can just give a brief summary, maybe.
Yeah, sure. All right. So just to quickly summarize then, right? I mean, like I said, I'm with all of this experience. I think one of the biggest learnings for me. So for me, was in two phases. One was in the 6 years that I worked in the analytics industry, and how that particular experience was far different than what I experienced in that 1 year of my MBA in Spain. And the sort of conclusion, or the sort of understanding I have come to in all of this, is that 1 year that you take out for the MBA is a game-changing year, and I'll walk you guys through what I mean by that in a moment. But I think, just to summarize this sort of experience helps me help people like you to understand why should you choose an MBA, or why should you choose an MBA abroad, or even maybe zoom out and ask yourself, do you even need an MBA, right? So happy to cover all of these questions. Moving on. So right. So before I start, right, let's dream of a world without COVID. Now, why do I say this? I think it's very important to understand there are two aspects to these things. One, I of course can't live in denial that with the whole crisis going on right now, things are going to be very different in the future, or even in the current environment that we are in. So, of course, things are impacted, things are different. But at the same time, the second aspect to it is, I don't want to give you guys a perspective of the MBA or the MBA abroad just by considering, what's happening today. Because let's say the best case scenario, in a month's time, there is a vaccine that comes out, and you know what? Surprise, surprise! Everyone is treated, and you can roam around very freely. In that case, things are not going to be very different from you. And I'm guessing most of you guys might be thinking of doing an MBA maybe in the coming year, or the year after that, or maybe even 2-3 years later, right? So, which is why I want to keep things. So my entire presentation is going to be based, at least for about 70% part, is going to be based on a world where we don't have COVID-19. Not just where a world where we don't have COVID-19, but where we are free to travel, we are free to meet in groups, and we have less dependency on Wi-Fi. So, cross my fingers. Hopefully it comes in soon. All right. So moving on to the first question, right? What is the right time and place to do an MBA? One of the things I think you guys will learn in the MBA is, the short answer is, it depends, right? And this is something we all learn in that. I think this is the biggest learning that one can have in the MBA. For every answer, or for every question, the answer is, it depends. So, however, I want to keep it simple for you guys, because I don't think the Chase guys are going to be very happy if I leave all of the questions with "it depends." So I'm going to try and answer it based on different factors. So what are the factors does this question, or does this decision depend on? One of the first being your work experience. Now, why do I put that as the first point? And this is something you'll notice throughout the call, guys. I'm going to make some very opinionated remarks, and the whole idea behind doing this is, I don't want to keep things very gray for you guys, right? I want to give you guys a very strong view of how I think it works, and so that it helps you more than me just saying, oh, there are different cases and there are different scenarios. So work experience is extremely critical, because what happens is, with most of the times when you are interviewing for companies after your MBA, the first thing that they ask is, how many years of experience do you have? The next thing that they ask is, okay, tell me what you have done in your previous work. No one, and let me tell you, in my 40 interviews that I have done in my MBA, not a single person has asked me, oh, tell me about what you did in your MBA. Right? Let that sink in for a moment. This is the exact reason why work experience is extremely critical before you decide the time that you want to do an MBA. What is the ideal experience? I don't know. But what I normally suggest people is that it should be plus 4 to 5 years. Second is financials. No surprises there. I'm pretty sure all of you guys know it is an extremely expensive affair. It's not just your tuition, but your living, your eating, your drinking, your partying. Everything is expensive out there, right? So it's very important to consider two things when it comes to financials. One, whether can you support yourself during the MBA and support your tuition, and second is, if you don't get a job in time, can you keep supporting yourself, or do you have a plan B to help yourself out of the massive loan or the massive debt that you take up? The third are macro factors, and by macro factors, I mean what is happening right now, like the COVID scenario, right? There may be few countries where things might improve. There may be few countries where it may not, and things keep changing. So something like this is are things that you have to keep in the lookout for. And the last one, and the most important one, because that's the reason why I've marked it bold, is your risk appetite. What do I mean by that? When I spoke to you guys about financials, plan A, plan B, all of this boils down to one simple thing. If you take your work experience, if you take your financials, if you take all the macro factors, at the end of the day, it really boils down to whether can you take that risk or not. And the reason it's very important is because the right time and the place gets decided by that. If you decide to, for example, if I or you or anyone for that matter decide to do an MBA this year in the US, right? An MBA or this year, or starting, something that starts in December or January. If you decide to do that, it's extremely critical to understand that, wait, you might just have 2 years of, an amazing experience where, world is drowning, but you're still safe. You might come out on the safer side, or you may not. And you got to have a good, strong plan B in place for that, right? So, based on these factors, or these factors are the most important things that you keep in mind before you decide what is the right time and place to do it. So time, I already told you guys. Place is very different, and I'll talk about it very soon when I pick up the next question, right? So, what is the job scenario post MBA in most countries? I think this is where the fundamental or the most important question for all of you guys lies, right? It did for me as well when I was choosing between two universities. I must have reached out to a lot of LinkedIn people to ask, oh hey, what is the job market like, and is it possible to get a job? Is it not? Okay, I'm seeing another chat pop. Ira, is that you?
No, I think the voice is fluctuating sometimes in the middle, so people are just saying that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's like 90% of the time it's
Okay.
edible.
Okay.
Just sometimes it goes.
Yeah, no worries. My WhatsApp is on. Each time you can't hear, just ping me on that, and it's much easier for me to check on that.
Sure.
So, all right. So jumping in again. What is the job scenario post MBA in most countries? So again, the quick answer for this obviously is, like I said before, it depends. It's not straightforward. But what are the factors it depends on? One, the experience you have. Now, again, why is this important as against the before? Is because if you have a lot of experience in India, some of the schools in Europe find it very difficult to understand how you'll be able to get a job post MBA in Europe. And at the end of the day, what adcoms in most MBA schools, what they majorly look for is, oh, hey, tell me about what you really have done before and explain me why will it be easy for you to get a job outside. Because at the end of the day, they are looking for good ROI. So if your experience is, if you have experience in Europe, it's really easier to get into a European school, as against if you have experience in the US, it's you have a really good chance in getting an American school. At the same time, it doesn't mean that that you can't get into other schools, or that it's not possible at all. I'm just saying the odds are far more simpler. Second thing it depends on is the country you choose. Now let's talk about each of these markets. Right, Europe is a very tough market in a way that there are two major factors when it comes to for a postgraduate student in Europe. One of the first factors is that most of the countries here need a work permit from, or need you to be a resident or a citizenship holder of the EU. There are very, very, not very few, but in relative terms compared to the number of companies out there, there are few companies that sponsor your visa. So sponsoring your visa is one important thing. This is not a problem in the US, because what happens is if you graduate out of a American university, you normally get an OPT period for about, where you can work for about a year at least in the US without worrying about your visa status. The same thing does not happen in Europe. In Europe, once you're done, adios, go back to your country and try and find a job from there. So what that means is that you have to use that 1 year to figure out a job in Europe. Second most important thing is your language constraint. Most of the jobs, like consulting, for example, become very, very difficult to crack because all of them need a client-facing role, or all of them have a client-facing role. And for client-facing role, you need to speak the language. So these are two reasons why Europe is a slightly tough market. Let's talk about the US next. The US is far more, how do you say, for MBA jobs, it's far more open. The market is vast. The salaries are amazing. It is great. But here is where the job scenario becomes tricky, and the job scenario can't be just seen in its own world, right? What I mean by that is you have to look at the ROI. You have to look at how much are you investing in your program as against how much are you getting out of that program, right? So if you invest about $100,000 or about, not even 100, sorry, I'm underestimating. If you invest like $200,000 in a 2-year MBA, and if you get a job for $100,000 after it, it's really not worth it. Right. So those are a few of the things that you really have to consider about the US. But like I said, market-wise, it's a far more easier place to get a job than Europe. Then coming to Asia, Asia has a lot of good schools, not very, how do you say, and when I say Asia, I mean schools in Singapore, majorly, which have, or even China for that matter. Most of these countries have really good schools. They have really good campuses also. So are their rankings. But the job scenario again is not as easy as what it would be, in let's say, let's pick India for example, right, which is very similar to some of these countries. In Asian countries, what typically happens is your work permit becomes very important. And the weird thing about Asia, not weird thing, but the difficult thing about Asia is your competition is huge. It's humongous, because you'll have a lot of people with similar profiles as you, who are typically engineers, who are typically MBA graduates. So that becomes a really tough nut to crack. And not just that, here's a quick, how do you say, something that I experienced in my interviews. Whenever I used to interview with an Asian companies, all of my interviews were puzzle-based interviews. Normally, if you're doing an MBA and if you're interviewing for a company, your interviews are related to cases. They give you a case, you have to crack it. But no, Asian companies, most of them would like to understand there are 4 cars, there are 100 spots in the car park available, and you have 1 car. What is the probability that you park in this very spot? And that's the question that you have to answer after your MBA. So, that's a weird thing, at least according to me. The next one is the school you choose. Again, a little obvious, but it's very, very important. Every school, let me tell you, has a very, very different portfolio of companies that it offers, or that it brings to the campus to present. If you pick, a IE business school in Madrid that I went to and compare it with the IESC business school in Barcelona, those 2 schools have very different companies that that the university gets on campus. So that's again one of the critical things to remember. Let's look at the next question. How does a foreign MBA help your career? Now, this is a very, very important question, right? I'm pretty sure most of you guys have this particular question, given the sort of investment that you make. So there are 4 important things that I personally feel that the One of the first and most important, and guys, I cannot stress enough on how important this particular factor is that it builds your personality. Why is this important? If you guys are looking for a job in Europe or in the US or anywhere in the western parts of the world, your personality is extremely important. And how does this personality get built? It only gets built when you are in a group of people with very different backgrounds, with very different personalities, and with their very different upbringings. Let me give you an example. In my MBA, I was in a group of 6 people. You normally, when you're doing the MBA, you have something called as the work groups, where you work in a group of 6, and for every subject, you have a certain project that you work on. Now, all of us 6 people were from very different places. There was one of them was a teacher, the other one was insurance person, the other one was an architect, the other one was an analyst, and I forgot, and the last one was entrepreneur. And I came from a very different background again. So this is one type of diversity. The second type of diversity that it had was that one was from the US, one was from Kenya, one was from Costa Rica, one was from Peru. So you see all of these differentiating factors. When you sit in the room, you know what happens? When I present an idea, you have a lot of blank faces, like maybe you guys have right now. If I'm presenting, I hope not. But and the moment you see that, what happens is your entire perspective changes. You start hearing more and more. You start listening to more and more things that people say. You start acknowledging more things. You start refuting in a way which is not very condescending, which is not very offensive. All of this, what it does is it makes you bolder. It makes you more tough from inside, and it makes you far more eligible candidate for a global job than what you would be had you been living in the same city for a very long time in your life, right? So that's one of the very, very important things to remember. The second most important is it creates a network. Now, this is, I think, the reason why people should go for the MBA. It is not for again, my opinion, but I mean, for me, it wasn't about the content that the MBA provided. It was not all about the sort of things I would get to do in the MBA. It was all about the network that I create. Why is this important? We all know the network effect. We all know how LinkedIn works. We all know how Facebook works. What is the most important thing that happens on these two platforms? Right? When you connect with 100 or 200 people on LinkedIn, those 200 people help you connect to their own 200 people, and so on and so forth. Right? This is very, very critical, because what happens is that, let's say if I would have lived in Mumbai throughout my life, I would have had about, about 500 people who I knew very well. So my prospects of getting a job were dependent on those 500 people working in some, let's say 500 different companies. But let's take an example of you doing an MBA abroad. What now happens is that you are suddenly in touch with at least 400 people who are part of your cohort when you started your MBA, and you are also in touch with like thousands of more people who graduated before. How does that work, right? So, for example, tomorrow, if any of you guys, does an MBA from IE, you can reach out to the thousands of people who have done any sort of graduation in IE, not just an MBA. And they will entertain you. They will reply to your message. They will refer you for the job. This is the only way how MBA becomes super, super helpful, because you have all these people who can vouch for you and who can put your referral. Because let me tell you, without referrals, it just doesn't work outside. It's just not easy to get a job. The third most important thing is that it creates opportunities. So by creating opportunities, let me give you an example. When I started my MBA, my goal was only one. It was to get a job, post the MBA. It was very, very simple. Now, however, when I started the MBA, during the course, there is something called as a startup lab, where we get to incubate an idea from scratch. The school helps you with everything, with the initial funding, getting investors, you pitching to investors, I did this for about 6 months. I found two amazing partners to work with. We worked day and night. We actually created a startup. We got a few customers. It almost made me I almost started to feel that this is for me, right? This is what I mean by opportunity. It brought me to an opportunity which normally I would not have. And now why is this important only for a foreign MBA and not a domestic MBA? See, guys, nothing against the Indian schools, right? I think they are amazing. No doubt when you come out of an Indian MBA, you have an amazing opportunity to work outside and make an impact in the world. But what happens is that to most extent, your cohort is very similar. And by similar, I mean, they are all, okay, they'll be from different cities, like how one of you guys is from Raipur, the other is from Bangalore. You will all have people from the Indian cities who typically have the same culture of growing up, who typically have the same background, and who mostly watch the same things and speak about same things. They drink the same things, they eat the same things. Right? So automatically what happens is your opportunities are very limited because you don't have new avenues that you can look into. But what a foreign MBA does is that it shows you different cultures. It shows you different things. For example, I'm pretty sure you guys must have heard about Rent to Mojo, which is like a massive startup in India, right? And it's all about sharing things. Did you know the concept of sharing does not exist out here in Europe? Amazing opportunity to make a Rent to Mojo here, right? So that's a sort of opportunity that I'm speaking about. And then the last but not the least, and I feel there should be absolutely no shame in saying this. There is more money. And I don't think this particular point needs a lot of description. I think it's pretty straightforward. When once you get a job outside, it's a very different ballgame as against getting an average job out of the MBA in India. So before I kick into this, right, the last particular point, I want to take a quick pause here, and I want to start out. I want to focus on you guys and take questions if you have any. Before I start, going into what is this new world of COVID and what does it mean for you guys, or what does it mean for your MBA? So I'm going to take a quick pause here, open up the chat, and see what you guys have to ask. Right. Okay. Quite a few things. Voice is fluctuating. Sorry about that. I hope it's better now. What's the job scenario in India after MBA from IM or any tier 2 college? All right. So firstly, it's very good. I think it's amazing. I'll tell you what the Indian schools are really good at. The Indian schools are really good at ROI. Let me tell you what happens in a foreign B school. And I don't know if you've heard this enough before or not, but your chances of landing a job in the foreign MBA are very different from India. Why? Because in the foreign MBA or in the B school, in any country that you pick, you don't have companies that come to campus and recruit you. That is not the culture that universities follow here. So what did my university do? They used to bring companies. They used to have companies present themselves. Like Microsoft used to come. They used to few people from Microsoft would present what Microsoft is, what are the job openings and so on and so forth. And then we would have a networking event where we would speak to their people. And this is again something that builds your personality, right? To walk up to an HR and almost like ask them out, right? Like almost like, create an impression and go like, oh, how are you doing and everything. And very slyly, slide your CV saying, here's my CV. What do you think about it? Right. But anyway, jokes apart, I think that's one of the biggest eye openers for the Indian population. So that's why doing an MBA in India is far more simpler, because then you have recruiting companies who come. Now, if you look at IIMs, it's an amazing job scenario. I think you will land a very good paying job. At the same time, if you do it from a tier 2 college, I don't really have tier 2 schools on top of my mind, but let's pick an SP Gen, right? Which is, which according to me is still not a IM ABC. But if you're from one of those schools, your job prospects are pretty good. I have quite a few people who I know who have graduated from SPGen, they do well. They, you get a job for sure and you make good money. But it's again not the same as what you would had you been from an IIM. Also, what happens with an IIM is that sticker lives with you throughout your life. It's like in India, you don't have to explain yourself too much. Just saying that you have an IIM degree helps you completely, right? So I hope Redmi, I'm pretty sure that's not your name, but I hope that answers your question. Okay, Aditya Agrawal. I was considering abroad for MIM. Is it very different from MBA? Yes, Aditya, it is completely different from the MBA. MIM is a program that people typically, sorry, that MIM is a program that students pick when they don't have a lot of experience, when they have about a year or two max, maybe. Most of them are just fresh graduates. The challenge with the MIM program is that even after you graduate, you will mostly be looking at jobs which are at the beginning level. So or the opening level. So by that, what I mean is you will be looking at business analyst or data scientist or not data scientist, because that's not relevant to me, but basically reporting analyst sort of roles, which are literally level 1. According to me, my opinion for the MIM program is that I don't think this is a very, very helpful program, because to be honest, if you're spending about 20 to 30 lakhs on a certain program, you better be spending it on something which teaches you a hard skill. And MIM does not teach you a very hard skill. So it's just like a junior of an MBA program, but you'll still end up spending quite a lot of money, just like the MBA program. Feel free to reach out to me later if you want to know what opportunities there are for MIM people. Happy to help there. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Hope that answers your question, Aditya. Then the next one is from, okay, hold on, I can do this. Ram Narayanan. Mr. Iyer, what about doing an MBA from Canada and the job prospects over there? Okay. Canada is right now one of the really, really good countries to settle down in. By that, I don't mean get married and have kids. I mean, of course, if you want, you can. Sorry, but what I mean by that is it's an amazing country, no doubt. However, there are only these few schools over there that you can look about doing an MBA, like British Columbia, for example. Some of these schools, if you are from, you have a good chance of working in Canada. Otherwise, I don't quite know what is the, what are your chances if you're from a tier 2 school in Canada. But, overall to answer, I think they're good. I think you can pretty much count on getting a job if you have an MBA from Canada, for sure. All right, next question. Let me, after giving the PSW for 2 years from the UK in September 2019, now what are the pros and cons of doing an MBA from the UK from your point of view, sir? I would really appreciate if you guys don't call me sir. That makes me sound like I'm very old. But anyway, to answer the question, yeah, actually, that's a really good point. It's a massive change. It helps the students a lot. I have one of my friends who's studying in Said in Oxford Business School right now. According to him, at least, I don't know if it's applicable for his batch or not, but it seems like it's going to be super useful. And if that is the case, if there are students who are getting it, then let me tell you, the chances are amazing. I think it's a great pro then to do an MBA in the UK, because then you get to stay there for 2 years, because that's something that you don't quite get in a lot of European schools. Spain is doing that. Spain has introduced a 1-year visa, job search visa. I think Netherlands also has it. There are a few countries who have it, but I think given the UK market where people speak English, so I think it's great. So any of the top schools that you pick up in the UK, your chances of improving your ROI are far more higher now, given the new rule. Hope that answers your question. Mohit, I don't have any experience and I'm planning to do PG International Business Management in Canada. Any thoughts to share on it? Uh, I'm not sure what you quite mean by international business management. Do you mean MBA or is it something else? Uh, yeah, so I'm going to pause on that question, Mohit, till you just explain me and then I'll pick it up. Hope that's okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one quickly. Prem, MBA and top business schools in India versus abroad business schools, which is better? Wow, that's a very broad question. And you know what the answer is for this, right? It depends. Now, what does it what does it depend on? Um, Look, guys, I'm going to be very brutally honest about this. If it's about ROI for you guys, if it's about how much do you put in as against how much do you get out, then let me tell you, Indian business schools have far more. And I'm comparing, like, if you take like the top 10 schools, right? I'm not talking about tier 1 or tier 2 or something. But if you take the top 10 business schools in the Europe as against top 10 business schools in India, your chances of getting a good ROI are far, far higher in India. So no doubt, if you have it, take it up. But on the other hand, and here is where the depends answer comes in. If you are someone who is looking to get a job outside, right, in Europe, let me tell you, your chances of getting that by having an Indian MBA are very little. The odds are very low. The only way for you to get that is if you get a job in the Indian company and they send you to the European counterpart in any of the European countries, right? That's the only way you'll get to do that move. Not the only way, but if you go outside and search for yourself to get a job, maybe that's how you get it. So your chances of getting a job in Europe are are high only if you have a degree from here, because that's where the market opens up for you. Otherwise, it does not. Let me give you a simple example, right? For like the Booking.com, the company that I'm working for, for the last, they have few interviews that they do online. For the last one, you have to go to their office and do about 5 or 6 interviews, like the whole day back to back. And they fly you down there. They let you stay. It's beautiful, by the way. But what happens is they only flew me down because I was in Madrid and they were in Amsterdam. It was far easier for them to fly me. However, imagine had I been in India, they would have gone like, I have 10 more candidates. I don't need to have someone, get a visa for this and then book their long flights and then have them stay here for 3 days, because of course they can't come here in a day and go. So those sort of things, when considered, they feel that, no, someone is right here. We're from a good business school that we know of. Let's give them an opportunity, right? So that's the sort of example that you have. So your chances of getting a job in Europe are far more higher if you do an MBA in basically do it abroad. So it's not a very straightforward answer, like I said. Plus, also it also depends on what sort of experience do you want. You want a if you want to be a global citizen, if you want to work in Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Canada, and all these countries, then you have to step out of India for your opportunities to get better, right? So that's how I would answer it, Prem. I'm not sure if that completely helps you, but let me know if you want to be more specific with that question. All right, Mohit, you seem to have clarified your question. Post-graduation diploma. So, right. So I'm guessing this is not MBA, right? And let me talk about both MBA and not MBA, because someone else also had this question before. So I think, like I said before, the chances for this course, for MBA or for any other course, are pretty good in Canada, because the job market is really, really good. And most importantly, they speak the language. And that's what I feel becomes the most important thing. But I'm going to leave you guys with a thought, and I really want you guys to ponder over this, in the next few days, and feel free to reach out to me if you don't understand this. Personally, I don't really think the geography or the rank of the school matters a lot. I think what you really have to look at is figure out people who have done that course, figure out people who have graduated and are working or are doing the things that you want to do in life, and talk to them and ask them what are the odds of you getting, or for yourself to get that, right? If they are pretty good, then it doesn't freaking matter whether is it Canada or is it Iceland or Greenland or Kenya or any other country, right? It really does not matter, because at the end of the day, let me tell you, you guys need one job, right? You can't be working two jobs. You need one job. And if you need one job, all you need to know is that what are the chances of you getting it by speaking to people and understanding, okay, you had about 100 people who went there, how many people got the job? And if you really want, and this might sound very Shah Rukh Khan, maybe, but if you really want it, let me tell you, it's not the most difficult thing to get it. I was told when I moved to IE that, oh, Spain is very difficult to get a job, and blah 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 and everything. But it happens, and it happened for a few more people also. So it all boils down to how badly do you want it, and then it really. I've seen people from really crappy schools, by the way, and by crappy I mean like super crappy, which is basically a party school. Maybe they didn't even study, but let me tell you what, they freaking bagged a $90,000, $100,000 job. I mean, it's not the best, but hey, for a party school, why not? So that's the point that I'm trying to make. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions before I move into the last part of the presentation? Cool. So let me do that. All right. So what impact will COVID-19 have on MBA candidates? Right. So I'm not going to talk about the students who are doing the MBA right now, because obviously you guys are among them. I'm going to speak about what does it mean for you guys if you want to plan your MBA in the immediate future. So before I kick in, let me tell you, this is my opinion. This is not what it necessarily means, right? The first thing is I personally did some research on this, based on which I'm telling you guys. This is not just something I thought up about 5 minutes before I started this call. I've been speaking to quite a few people. I'm in touch with my dean of my MBA school, and I've been speaking to him also about how ADCOM is doing in terms of receiving applications for MBAs. One of the first things I've observed is that there are better chances of you getting into top schools if you apply in this immediate future. Why is that happening? There was there was a close friend of mine. She had actually admit from John Hopkins University, and she had applied to Harvard and wanted just for cakes. Guess what? She got a call from both of them. The university had actually first said, no, sorry, you haven't got it. But they reached out to her a month or two later saying, oh, no, wait, there's a seat opened up. Do you want it? How crazy is that, right? I mean, Howard first saying no, but coming back to you saying, oh, no, wait, we can give you the seat. Why is that? Of course, because everyone is scared to do an MBA right now. People don't know what is the impact going to be in the future. So it's not the most stable environment. So which is why on the pro side, the chances of you getting into a top school really improve. So a big positive. The second is increased chances of scholarship. This is again from few of the stories that I've heard. What has happened is that they really want you to come and do the MBA right now. So for them to give you about 10%, 20%, 30% cut on tuition is really a small amount of sacrifice as against losing your entire 100% of the tuition. By that I mean just having a seat not filled out, right? So automatically your chances of getting a scholarship significantly improve. The third point is it's going to be a less expensive MBA. Why is it going to be a less expensive MBA? Because your first few months are majorly going to be home, because I mean, I'm not saying like that's a very good thing, but on the plus side, you can't ignore that you also will save some money if you aren't living in an apartment in Amsterdam, for example. prices are crazy. So it'll be cheaper if for the first 2-3 months you're sitting in India. However, the MBA that you get after all of this will be the same MBA degree that anyone has gotten in the past, including me, right? Because at the end of the day, 2 years down the line, no one's going to ask you, oh, hey, wait, were you studying in that year with COVID? Oh, so you were 2 months home. That doesn't sound like very good. I'm not going to give you a job. That's not going to happen, right? No one's going to care about it. So you still save on quite a lot of money. And let me tell you guys, it's a significant amount of money that you save when you're not living here. The last, but not the least, is unfortunately potential risk of post-MBA jobs. I have a few people who are studying the MBA right now. It's not easy for them. It's really not easy for them. They've been struggling. Many companies are on hiring freeze right now, so they aren't taking people in, and all these people with heavy loans on their head have to still keep trying, because of course you can't do anything else. Most of them are sitting in India, unfortunately. They're not even in the country where they had gone to do their MBA. So that risk remains. And let me tell you, unfortunately, guys, I'm really sorry, on this call at least, I can't tell you if this will change or not in the coming future, right? Because like I said, I am also in an industry which is on the front line of all of this, right? The travel agent, the travel online travel agency is at the front and center of all of this. Travel is restricted, so even we don't know how things are going to work out. But at the same time, what we do know is that things will improve. Right, there will be a better time to come in the future, and at the risk of sounding like a father in a church, you just have to hope that the future will be better than what it is right now. So what that essentially means is that I personally think this year, whether this in the coming year, if you guys are thinking of doing your post graduation, there could be all of these advantages that you could have. And if you are someone who has a very strong plan B in place, that is, if you don't get a job after your MBA, you still have a way, you still have a fallback, you have enough money to support yourself and everything, I think you should go do it, right? Because, if you have a safety net, don't worry about it. Because what will happen is that 1 or 2 years later, your Harvard degree or your Wharton degree will stand out like nothing else will, right? What will also happen, by the way, is when all of this dies, the next particular MBA batch that kicks in will have thousands of more applicants than before. Because obviously all of these people haven't applied in this year, thinking about the COVID. So this year or next year, for that matter, right? There may be recession issues or whatever in the upcoming year. So considering all of that, I think if you have a strong plan B in place, go for it. But if you don't, if ROI is very important for you, then my personal opinion would be that you probably think about this a little more before you do. Again, like I said, I'm of the strong belief that all you need is one job. So but so I'm going to pause. One of the quick this thing to say is that you guys can always reach out to me on my email. One of the to tell you guys, startup, not a business now, committed, MBA consulting. What that means is to help you identify the best schools for you, to help you prepare your essays, to help you prepare your interviews, and to get you to your dream school. We've been working with quite a few students now. We've gotten a few students in top universities in Europe. We've been pretty successful at that, and we are dirt cheap because primary reason for us for this particular business is not to make money, but it's to help people get better schools, right? So on that note, I'm going to pause and leave you guys with questions to ask me. We still have 6 more minutes. I hope we can do the best of it. Right. The Q&A.
It's final 5 minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask Soham.
Yeah. Hey, is this the last question? Why my chat not opening up? Wait. Right, I'm on the chat, guys. Please feel free to ask any and every question under the sun. Right. What is the name of the website you mentioned for the startup before? It's called. Prem, can you reach out to me on LinkedIn? I'll share you the link. I'll share the link with you, and you can do that, right? Or you can also book a session, one-to-one session with me. I think that works the best for you to figure that out. Any other questions? Also, by the way, guys, I do this a lot. So, if you guys want to reach out to me now or later, don't hesitate. Ask any stupid question that you can. I myself have asked my share of stupid questions to quite a few people. Always helps, let me tell you, as long as you get the answer. Okay, actually, I have read news that companies in IIMs and IIT have cancelled job offers right now in India. So, is the scenario in India for him to do an MBA? Yes, you're absolutely right. It is. However, to be honest, Redmi, I think it's safe to do an MBA in India right now. Try and do the 1 year MBAs mostly, because you don't have internship issues there. You don't have, how do you say, you don't have to do anything in the year. And I'm pretty sure after a year's time, the economy is for India at least will still be better than most of the economies outside. I think if I were in your place, if I would have an admit from IIMs, I would pick it up. I would not let it go. Because after 2 years, if you're still in recession, if you still don't have jobs, then let me tell you, this life is not worth living. Then we might as well not do what we're doing, right? So I think if you have it, you should take it up. I hope that answers your question. Cool. Then in that case, I'm good. Ayush, anything else?
Yeah, I think this is good. Thank you so much, Soham, for taking a time on Saturday.
No worries.
Helping these people. I think I'm sure they got some good takeaways after this webinar. Guys, you can reach out to Soham on our profile. I've shared the link. He'll help you in all your queries related to MBA.
Yeah, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you want. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Soham. I'll speak to you.
No worries. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Ciao, ciao.